My coworker kept stealing my lunch. So I cooked up the perfect revenge. I've always considered myself a pretty easygoing person. After all, working in a bustling marketing agency means you need to roll with the punches. But there's one thing that really gets under my skin: people touching my food without permission. Maybe it stems from growing up with 3 siblings who were constantly raiding my snack stash, or maybe it's just a basic respect thing. Either way, when my carefully prepared lunches started vanishing from the office fridge, I knew I had to do something about it. It started about 3 months after I joined Thompson and Associates. I'd gotten into a good routine of meal prepping on Sundays, partly to save money, partly because I genuinely enjoy cooking. My specialty was these amazing Vietnamese-inspired chicken sandwiches with pickled daikon, fresh herbs, and a homemade chili sauce that took me months to perfect. They weren't your typical sad desk lunch, and I took pride in that. The first time it happened, I thought I was losing my mind. I distinctly remembered placing my blue glass container with the bamboo lid in the break room fridge that morning. I even remembered the satisfying click of the lid securing into place. But when lunch rolled around, it was gone. I checked every shelf twice, thinking maybe someone had moved it to make space for their own lunch. Nothing. I chalked it up to a weird occurrence and tried to forget about it. Maybe I'd left it at home in my morning rush. It happened again the following week, and then again a few days later. That's when I started paying attention to patterns. The disappearances always happened on days when I brought something particularly appetizing. A regular turkey sandwich might survive until lunch, but my special recipes? Those vanished like clockwork. It was targeted food theft, and it was personal. I started watching the break room during my morning coffee runs, pretending to be absorbed in my phone while actually observing who went in and out. That's how I first noticed Mike from accounting. Mike was one of those guys who seemed to coast through life on charm and good looks, tall, always perfectly dressed, with the kind of smile that made the interns giggle during orientation. He was also, as it turned out, a lunch thief. I caught him red-handed one Tuesday morning, casually opening my container and peering inside like he was browsing a menu. When I cleared my throat from the doorway, he didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. "Oh hey," he said, flashing that 1,000-watt smile. "I thought this was extra from the meeting yesterday." "The meeting yesterday?" I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "The container with my name clearly labeled on top?" He shrugged, still grinning. "My bad. Honest mistake. Won't happen again." But it did happen again. And again. Each time with the same casual dismissal, the same practiced innocence. "Oh, was this yours?" Or "Whoops, thought someone brought this for the team." It was infuriating, especially because everyone else seemed to think Mike was such a great guy. He organized the office holiday party, remembered everyone's birthdays, and always had a funny story to share at happy hour. Who would believe he was systematically stealing lunches? I tried everything the proper channels suggested. I sent a polite email to HR about food going missing from the break room. They responded with a generic memo about labeling personal items and being considerate of shared spaces. I brought it up during a team meeting, careful not to point fingers. People nodded sympathetically, but nothing changed. I even tried storing my lunch in an insulated bag at my desk, but our office manager Katie quickly shut that down, citing food safety concerns and workplace cleanliness standards. After a particularly frustrating week where Mike helped himself to 3 of my lunches, including a homemade lasagna I'd been looking forward to all day, I decided enough was enough. If reasoning wouldn't work, and official channels were useless, then maybe it was time for a different approach. A spicier approach, you might say. I spent that weekend planning my revenge. It had to be perfect, something that would send a clear message without crossing any legal or ethical lines. I didn't want to hurt anyone, just teach a lesson about respecting other people's property. That's when I remembered my brother's ghost pepper collection. My younger brother Dylan is what you'd call a heat enthusiast. He grows his own peppers and makes these absolutely devastating hot sauces that could probably be classified as chemical weapons. I'd always thought his hobby was a bit extreme, but now it seemed like exactly what I needed. I called him up Saturday morning, trying to sound casual. "Hey, you still making that ghost pepper sauce?" "The face melter?" "Yeah, just bottled a fresh batch." "Why? Finally ready to graduate from your baby level sriracha?" I ignored his teasing. Any chance I could get a bottle? 4. A cooking experiment. He must have heard something in my voice because he paused before answering. This wouldn't have anything to do with that lunch thief you were complaining about last month, would it? Maybe. He laughed. Say no more. I'll bring you my special reserve. Just be careful with it, okay? And maybe wear gloves when handling it. Sunday night, I prepared my trap. I made my signature chicken sandwich, but this time with a few special modifications. First, a generous layer of Dylan's ghost pepper sauce, appropriately named Face Melter, spread thin enough to be invisible but thick enough to pack a punch. Then, for good measure, I added a healthy smear of wasabi, the real Japanese stuff, not the colored horseradish you get at most sushi places. My eyes watered just from the fumes as I assembled it. I wrapped everything carefully in my usual container, making sure my name was clearly visible on top. Just to be safe, I even added a little note, Sarah's lunch, please do not take. If Mike ignored this many clear signs, well, he'd have no one to blame but himself. Monday morning, I placed my lunch in its usual spot in the break room fridge, right at eye level. Then I settled in at my desk, which had a perfect view of the break room door. I tried to focus on work, but I kept glancing up every few minutes, waiting. Around 11:30, earlier than usual lunch hours, I saw Mike heading toward the break room. My heart started racing. Part of me wanted to run in and stop him. Was this too mean? But then I remembered all my missing lunches, his smug dismissals, and I stayed put. Through the break room's glass walls, I watched him open the fridge and reach for my container. No hesitation, no guilt, just his usual entitled confidence. He settled into one of the break room chairs, popped open the lid, and took a massive bite. What happened next was better than anything I could have imagined. At first, there was just confusion on his face. The wasabi hit first, that instant nose-burning sensation. Then came the ghost pepper. I've never seen someone's face turn so red so quickly. He started coughing, his eyes widening in panic. He lunged for his water bottle, chugging desperately, but anyone who knows their peppers knows water only makes it worse. By now, a small crowd had gathered to watch the spectacle. Mike was making these little whimpering sounds, tears streaming down his face, nose running. He ran to the water cooler, drinking straight from the spout, while Lauren from Creative tried to helpful suggest he try milk instead. Oh my God, he gasped between gulps of water. What? What was in that sandwich? I walked in casually, heading to the fridge. Oh, that was my lunch, I said, trying to sound surprised. The one with my name on it. I like my food spicy, helps clear the sinuses, you know? The look he gave me was priceless, a mix of realization, embarrassment, and lingering pain. His reputation for being the office golden boy took quite a hit that day, especially when people realized why he was eating my clearly labeled lunch in the first place. Word spread quickly through the office. By the end of the day, 3 other people had come to me privately to admit their lunches had gone missing too. Turns out Mike had been equal opportunity in his theft, but no one had wanted to be the one to call him out on it. The aftermath was interesting to watch. Mike avoided the break room entirely for the next week, bringing protein bars and eating them at his desk. When he finally ventured back in, he stuck to a small cooler he kept under his desk. Every time he passed my desk, he'd give my lunch bag a wide berth, like it might spontaneously combust. The office dynamic shifted too. People started sharing their own stories of missing lunches and suspicious disappearances. Katie from HR finally put up security cameras in the break room, just as a precaution. And someone, I suspect it was Dave from IT, started a tradition of leaving increasingly spicy snacks in the break room with notes like "free for anyone" and "help yourself." I noticed Mike never touched those either. The whole experience taught me something about office politics. Sometimes the official channels aren't enough. Sometimes you need a little creative problem solving and a lot of ghost pepper sauce to make things right. These days, my lunches stay exactly where I leave them. Mike and I have reached an unspoken understanding. He sticks to his protein bars, and I continue bringing my regular lunches, though I did start experimenting more with different spice levels. Turns out I developed quite a taste for heat after all that planning with the ghost peppers. Occasionally, when I'm feeling particularly amused, I'll bring in something that smells amazing, my mom's secret recipe pho, or fresh banh mi with extra chili sauce. I make sure to pass by Mike's desk with it, watching him instinctively lean away. Sometimes, if I'm feeling generous, I'll even share with other coworkers who ask politely. But everyone knows to ask first now. The break room has become a much more respectful place. People label their food religiously, and there's an almost excessive politeness about checking before taking anything from the fridge, even if it's clearly marked as communal. Someone even put up a little sign that reads "Think twice before you bite," with a cartoon of a flaming sandwich underneath. Last week, we had a new hire start in the marketing department. During her orientation, I overheard Mike warning her very seriously about the importance of respecting other people's lunches. "Trust me," he said, wiping his brow at the memory, "you don't want to learn that lesson the hard way." I couldn't help but smile as I walked past, my lunch bag swinging innocently at my side. Sometimes the best lessons come with a little bit of heat. Dylan still asks me occasionally if I need any more of his special sauce, always with that knowing grin. I keep a bottle in my desk drawer, just in case. Not that I need it anymore. The legend of the spicy sandwich lives on in office lore, a cautionary tale passed down to each new employee. These days, when I see my blue glass container sitting untouched in the fridge at lunchtime, I feel a little surge of satisfaction. It's not just about the lunch anymore, it's about respect, boundaries, and the knowledge that sometimes the best revenge is served between two slices of bread, with a healthy dose of ghost pepper sauce. I still make those Vietnamese-inspired chicken sandwiches, though now they've become somewhat famous around the office. People actually ask me for the recipe, though I always leave out one key ingredient from that memorable Monday. Some secrets are better left in the break room fridge, along with all our perfectly labeled, completely untouched lunches. And if sometimes, when I'm eating my lunch in peace, I catch Mike eyeing my container with a mix of longing and terror, well, that just makes everything taste a little bit sweeter.